Welcome to the Midlife Pilot Podcast. We are glad you're with us. What is it like to become a pilot in your 40s and 50s? The challenges are unique for those of us in midlife, but so are the rewards. Hosts Ben, Brian, and Ted talk learning to fly, growing as pilots, and the joy of flying to destinations. The purpose of the podcast is not to teach, but to share knowledge and experiences of being a midlife pilot. Join the Midlife Pilot community and listen in every week. We are not CFIs or particularly intelligent, so if you want to learn how to fly, talk to anyone else other than the hosts of a podcast. Even this intro was too challenging for us, and we used a robot to do it. Okay, checklists are complete. Let's get the show started.
Hello, and welcome to episode 195 of the Midlife Pilot Podcast, where we share the experiences and challenges of flying in midlife. Today, we're going to catch up on events, feedback, reviews, and whatever else Brian and Ted want to talk about. With me today is my friend coming to us live from Chattanooga, Tennessee. He flies a Cherokee 180 named Lucy. He has all kind of ratings and certificates and just kind of cool stuff. He's an incredible creator of great, just artistic, hopefully we'll get a YouTube video out here from him soon. But it's my friend Brian. Hello, sir.
Jeez, that's quite the opener. Thanks, Ben. You are I've called the sage, so I'll give you the compliment right back. Hey, I'm just glad to be here. Glad to be here with Ted, and glad to be here with the chat. And just whenever I would ask my father, "How are you doing?" he would just say, "I'm just glad to be here." So I'm just going with that today.
I'm just glad to have you here.
Yes, sir.
Also joining us from the beautiful Pacific Northwest in a small town we call Portlandia. It's not really that small. But he is our sport pilot extraordinaire flying a CTLS. We like to call that Egg. It's everybody's friend. Hello, Ted. How you doing, sir?
Hey, I'm doing good. Glad to be here too. Our last episode was with a guest. This is our kind of mostly regularly scheduled whiskey episode. It just kind of hits about the fourth episode each time. A podcaster I like talks about ordering appetizers for dinner and all appetizers and making an event out of it for his family. And he calls it Oops, All Appetizers. This episode's going to be Oops, All Feedback. So we have, I think, 5 audio feedbacks and a bunch of other things. So I think we're going to have some fun.
I should call it oopsitizers.
Like that. Oopsitizers. Brian, Ted, you mentioned something about being excited for C-130s?
Oh, yeah. I was going to text this to Lord F. Juliet because he's the other person I know would like this, but you're an aviation nerd when you hear, I'm used to hearing planes, what direction they're going and if they're a jet or not overhead and not even looking at ADS-B because I know what to expect at certain times and directions and everything else. But I heard something was weird and I popped up ADS-B just sitting on the couch because that's what I do. And I was like, oh, there's 2 C-130s flying overhead. And the reason I really recognized it was that they were coming like in and out of phase. They're at like 15,000 feet and I could hear that like phase conflict between the two. And so I walked outside across the street in bare feet because it's like, I had to see it. Couldn't actually see them because they were too high. But that's when you know you're an aviation nerd. when you're like, ooh, it's C-130s. So yeah.
You're ate up is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Ate up with aviation.
Yeah.
I had an interesting flight going up to Columbus on Friday.
Oh yeah.
Terry and I went up to go see my son. And for the most part, it was an uneventful flight. There was an occluded front that was just north of Columbus, but it was creating all this weather up there. I don't think I've ever flown into Columbus, Ohio without there being some type of weather. So I don't know what the deal is with that. And I mentioned this in the last show, I had an awesome approach controller. He said, hey, we're going to take you right over the top of the airport. And if you could pick it up, we'll do a visual. But when I was about 15 miles south of it, my avionics, everything, it was this really loud, we could hear it. It was loud in the headsets. It was pop, 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 pop.
Ooh.
Like my JDM 430 my Sandel, anything electronic was flashing on and off in very rapid succession. It almost sounded like a semi-automatic gun just going pop, 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 and it wouldn't stop. And so what I did is I came on I called up the approach controller. I said, I'm having some type of short in my electronics. I'm going to come off frequency for a minute because I wanted to power everything down and then restart everything. And he's like, no problem. Do what you need to do.
Yeah.
And I did that. I turned off the master avionics. I turned off the master switch, turned it back on, turned the avionics back on. And it went as normal, which scared me that I'm glad that fixed it, but it made me wonder, okay, the worst problems to have are intermittent problems, right?
Yeah.
You'd like to have something. And I didn't smell anything. And I asked Terry, I was like, do you smell any electrical or anything like that? So it scared me a little bit because we couldn't get the airport in sight and I was going to have to do an approach. And ironically, I was telling Terry, I was excited because I get to log another approach in non-thunderstorm environments. But that was one of those times where I would have much rather picked up the visual and flown in that. But we get to the airplane on Sunday, and I told Terry, I was like, we're going to get there early. I'm taking the cowling off. I'm going to look and see if I see anything. And I think what it was is that we got into some moderate precipitation. And I think some water got under the cowling and just hit something because I did not see anywhere where there was like sparking or any black soot, anywhere around any wire. I didn't see any bare wires. And I'd called up my brother-in-law and he said it was divine providence because we're taking the plane tomorrow into the avionics shop to get upgraded. So there's really no better time for this to happen. And they're going to, put a new audio panel on. So they're going to replace a lot of the wiring as it is. So.
Well, you said yourself at the very beginning, you said an occluded front.
Yep.
So you've got warm air being pulled up because the cold air is overtaking the warm air. Right. That creates a lot of static electricity. So it sounds to me like you very well. Do you have static wicks on your plane, or
I do not?
I just wonder about that. I wonder if
that's a great call out. I didn't think about that, but I'll bet you that's exactly what it was.
Well, my first thought was you've had one or two alternator replacements in the last year.
I have.
That's where my mind goes is alternator and voltage regulator. And so replacing all the avionics may not change anything. But
well, at least they can take and inspect what's going on back there, and maybe there was something that I missed.
Sounds like static. Yeah, I mean, especially that when you said it's like this pop, right? It's this accumulation of energy, and then when you killed everything and pulled it back on, that charge had been dissipated. I believe it was. I believe it was static. That's my claim. I'm sticking to it. But
that sounds very logical.
Mm.
And typically, we follow the most logical path when it's something intermittent like that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna hit SS Yellow Jacket's comment here. He said, "I would never have the nerve to turn off the master in flight." Well, okay, yours stays running even without the master on.
Yes,
I've had to cycle mine and in flight, and definitely thought about that where. There's one condition with overheating that the Rotax will do where get up in air, get stable, and then cycle. We'll call it magnetos. It's not, but we'll call it magnetos. The difference is the plane is not self-powered, right? It needs power to run, and so sitting there flipping that switch, you're thinking about it before you do it.
Yes. Yeah.
But you were thinking about this too. I mean, you don't just turn off the master like, when you think you might be low and you're IMC. Like,
so I'm at 5,000 feet at this point in time, and it's happened. Well, I can't say it didn't happen before, but I know that the plane will continue to run. I don't need my engine driven fuel. I mean, I don't need an electrical fuel pump. I've got gravity fed, so engine's still going to get fuel. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it was, again, we got it on the ground. It was no problem. I flew one of the better approaches I've flown in a long time. The 2 days earlier this week, I had to fly an approach and I just had a hard time. I was chasing needles, but it's that repetition getting into it. So we want to remind or tell everybody about our non-event event. There's some chat going on. We have moved the date to September 19th. September 19th is a Saturday. We will be getting together at 3. We'll start the live podcast at 4. And then afterwards, right down from where we're staying, it's on the airport. It's a place called Elevation Chop House, great little restaurant. They've got big windows. You can see the entire runway and do some plane spotting. And if you don't want to talk with us, which nobody would blame you if that was the case, we're going to try to do this in a hangar. We've talked with our friend Larry, and he's got several beautiful airplanes, some vintage airplanes that look really cool. Hopefully the L-39 will be in there. I know this is going to conflict with some of the folks in the chat, but this is when we're able to do it. And so we've got it on the calendar for then. More information will be coming out as we pull this out. And again, this is a non-event event. So we're just going to tell you, this is where we're going to be on this date and time.
For now.
Yeah.
For now.
Yeah.
For now. For now.
Yeah, the whole point of having a non-event event is so that we bear no responsibility to anyone else. So we want you guys to be there if you can be there. But hey, man, you got to keep up with us because, Ted is like Ferris Bueller, he's just moving and shaking. And we're just trying to keep up with Ted, really.
And Adam Folrath says in our chat, he says, September 19th is literally my birthday. Where is this? It's at McCollum Field, Cobb County International. So if you're coming to us from out of the country, they do have port of entry for you. But Adam, if you tell us you're coming, we might even have a birthday cake for you.
Yeah.
Or a birthday beer at least.
Or birthday beer for sure.
Well, Adam would be flying down from Nashville, so let's not, hey, he's up there.
So.
And we've, I know I've booked refundable tickets and Brian had talked about booking his backups as refundable tickets. We had to move this once and we have to move it again, and that's okay. This is just the podcast. We're doing what we can. We work around lives and theoretical job opportunities and families and everything else. And so, it'll be a good time.
We'd love to see you. Don't get us wrong. We'd love for you to be there if you can make it. So
T-shirt idea was just said there, Ted. This is just a podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
That'll probably be up and on the merch store before the end of this podcast.
As some of my friends say, there are no good weekends. It doesn't work for everyone, and that's okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, why don't we go ahead and launch into some listener feedback?
Yeah, we got a lot to catch up on. Do you want me to hit this first one?
Knock yourself out, my friend.
All right. He says, this is from Delta Foxtrot. He says, hi, Ben, Brian, and Ted. The day after my 65th birthday, I had the privilege of flying with Ted in Portland in his CTLS, and Ben is 100% correct when he says that Ted is everyone's friend. That flight up through the Columbia River Gorge was a wonderful way to begin what turned out to be a pretty remarkable year of aviation. Over the past year, I've been intensely focused on training for my instrument rating, but I've also made sure to keep having aviation adventures along the way. I returned to the Grand Canyon for my third flight there, this time renting an airplane in Las Vegas and flying to Grand Canyon West. In early June, I traveled to Sewanee, Tennessee for spin training with Catherine Cavagnero. Very cool. An experience I would recommend to any pilot. Catherine is an extraordinary instructor, both on the ground and in the airplane. And finally, this week, 1 month before my 66th birthday, I passed my instrument check ride on the first attempt. Well done.
Congrats.
The midlife pilot community has been part of my aviation journey throughout all of this. I'm very happy I found the podcast and the community around it. And especially glad I eventually got to meet all three of you in person at the 100th non-event event. Please accept this PayPal drop as a thank you for continuing to tell the stories, share the experiences, and create a place for those of us who discovered aviation a little later in life. Blue skies, Delta Foxtrot. I think that's so cool that you did spin training with Catherine at Sewanee. That's such a cool, one of a kind aviation experience to have. And I even got to watch Ben land at that little runway once, and he landed on most of it. So it was it's really no. Thank you so much for the PayPal drop, obviously, and what I just love that the idea that you're pursuing ratings, but while you're pursuing ratings, you're having adventures along the way, and I think that's such a healthy. People get pretty consumed with getting rating to rating to rating, and to be sort of savoring the benefits of what you are accomplishing as you're doing it and still achieving more is great to hear.
Yeah. He's a great example of that, of taking advantage of the opportunities and enjoying it. We had a great flight. We talked about it on the podcast. We went out to Twin Peaks Hamburgers out at Hood River, and that was a lot of fun. And he was in Portland for something else, and just he kept an extra day in case it would work for me. And that stuff's so much fun to do. It's just fun to hang out with somebody for the day. And we haven't seen each other again since then, right? We've met twice. Those are the kind of opportunities. They're just so much fun, and you just enjoy life when that stuff happens. I was actually watching Catherine Cavagnaro EAA presentation last week. She did a webinar, like a Wings style webinar, about being a DPE for instrument check rides. And I was talking with Mark Wendell Geek about it, and it was really cool. So there'll be a link in the show notes to that. But one of the things that she says is she gives her candidates a list of airport pairs that have some real altitude between them or real terrain between them. A lot of them are near me, not surprisingly. And her whole point is she wants these people that may have been learning in somewhere without significant terrain to think about what IFR in terrain means. And the whole point of IFR being guaranteeing your terrain clearance even without radio contact. And she really talks through that. And also, like, there are good reasons to not go direct. You might avoid that 14,000 foot mountain if you divert a tiny bit. You don't have to climb over it now. So it's a really good presentation. And if you've got any instrument knowledge or desire, or you like kind of nerdy things, it's a great presentation. So it was funny that Delta Foxtrot mentioned it, because it was on my list of things to talk about tonight. So yeah, it was called Inside the Instrument Rating Check Ride from a DPE's Perspective. So yeah.
I'm very proud to say my trip to Columbus, actually I planned a Victor Air route that took me over Chattanooga and then northward up to Columbus, because it was IFR and low IFR all over the Smoky Mountains. And it added what it turned out to be 14 minutes to the flight.
There you go.
Right.
And so that's been on my mind, especially very lately. So that's very cool. We got a couple of reviews in, and I'd like to read the first one because I think Brian should read the second one, if that's okay with you.
Okay, all right.
This one comes to us from Drew Aviator 514, and he gives us 5 stars, and he says, "Great podcast is the title of the review. Awesome podcast. Love hearing from people around my age just starting their pilot journey." So thank you very much for leaving that review.
Well, and we've got 5 stars from Aviator Mo.
Yep.
Title of the review.
It's awesome.
Title of the review: Stop Whining, Ben. I should just stop there, but
You should, but it's okay.
but luckily it continues, and in the same spirit, he continues and he says, "Stop whining, Ben. Here's your review. great podcast to listen to as a pilot that started to learn how to fly at 40 years old and who is now in his 50s. I truly appreciate the content. As a West Coast flyer, I only wish you had meetups and a fly-in or central on the West Coast. But listen, now that maybe that's, we come up with goofy themes for our sort of flying events. And I think that if we ever do one, say in the central California coast or something, or whatever out west, I'm thinking maybe it's just called the Stop Whining Ben Fly-In.
I have some serious thoughts on that. I think I'm with that, and I think that maybe 2027 meetup should be in Ted Land and call it No More Whining.
To be fair, his Stop Whining Ben sentiment is just because Ben has been lobbying with you guys to send us to leave reviews for us on Apple Podcasts. So even out of spite, we will take them. Thank you.
And I'll say this to Aviator Mo: if you send an email to midlifepilotpodcast@gmail.com with your address, I will send you stickers promptly. So
There you go.
And that goes for anybody else that leaves a review. I'm not above bribing. Very cool. So we got 5 tape machine feedbacks, and we wanted to get into those. Ted, what do you think?
Yeah, let's fire them off kind of one by one. We'll talk about them and go on to the next one. Our first one here is from Mark Wendell-Geek. He had some time to think about, we did that owner maintenance episode. So that would have been 193.
That's correct.
And he and I were on it, kind of nerding out. And he had some thoughts and some, kind of, I wish I would have said type things. So let's play that.
Hi, guys. After listening to our podcast last week talking about owner-assisted maintenance, there were a few things that I wish I'd said. I thought I'd test out the fancy-dancy tape machine thingy, but there's a 2-minute limit, which I didn't want to have to figure out how to stay under, so you get about 2.5 minutes. First, there was a comment from EC in the chat about who could and couldn't replace a cylinder. And the answer is actually anyone. Yes, you, me, anyone can replace a cylinder. However, only an FAA-certified A&P can sign the logbook entry returning the airplane with that replaced cylinder back into service. That's generally true for all maintenance. You can do it, and your A&P can supervise and sign off the work. But just because that's true doesn't make it a good idea. There are some things that supervise means looking at the end result and seeing that I didn't screw up. But there are some things where supervise means watching over my shoulder every step of the way. For example, timing a magneto. You can't just look at it and see that it's timed properly. Anyway, this leaves a lot of leeway for an A&P to open the door for owners to do things. If you want to do this, it's probably a good idea to talk to your A&P first. Second, we mentioned a little bit about time spent looking up part numbers. But what I didn't mention was that when I'm given an assignment by my A&P, especially if it's a new thing I've never done, at least, and I mean at least, 50% of my time is spent looking at the maintenance manual for the correct procedure to do that thing. And if there are any specific torque settings that I need to know when I put everything back together. Third, tools. I'm convinced that half the reason that the A&P requires 4,000-ish hours of apprenticeship is because that's how long it takes to get a rudimentary set of tools to do the job. The sheer volume of tools that my A&P has is unreal. But what blew my socks off was how expensive the tools are. He mentioned to me recently that if insurance had to pay to replace his tools, the amount could purchase a small house. On top of that, there are a ton of tools that require annual calibration. For example, he has to send off his torque wrenches annually to a lab that ensures that when it's configured for 50 foot-pounds of torque, that's exactly how much it's triggering at. And finally, some of the maintenance I've done requires that I contort myself into positions that I didn't think were possible. I've actually managed to get myself into a position inside the airplane that required assistance to get out. I felt like an idiot until every other person that was there with me said they've done it too. So sign up for the stretch class at the Y. Anyway, thanks for having me on the podcast. Honey, where's the icy hot?
That's fantastic.
The end of that really reminded me of Captain Jeff's podcast.
With Hillel.
Yeah, the yelling to the room type of thing. Just some of that energy. That is one of the things is when when you say, "Oh, I'm confident, I've torqued these properly," it's like, yeah, but probably not with a tested torque wrench. It's not certified. I do it. I mean, I think a lot of people do, but there are things like that to do it right. And boy, you hope that the person that is reassembling your engine is doing it right, even if you're not with your oil pan bolt. That's the difference. I think is make sure they know what they're doing.
I didn't know that you had to have them calibrated that often. I mean, I knew they had to be tested every so often, but annual for your tools.
When I was kind of Boy Scout age, there was a guy who was teaching us electronics, and that's what he did for a living is kind of repair and calibrate instruments. And so one of the things that happened is I got my kind of basic electronics knowledge, and I got given a Simpson 260. There is about 1% of our audience who knows what I'm talking about here, but I was given a Simpson 260 for having done all this and even had my name on the meter. It was an analog meter. And the way that they recalibrate those is they'll literally just change the labels on the inside of it. So you measure 10 volts, put the dot right there. Don't spin a dial or anything else. Just change the face of it so that it all matches. I don't know. So it's like that. I've always known like these fancy instruments that this happens. And boy, don't ever drop your torque wrench. That's the other thing. So these are people that know a lot more than I do and are better at their jobs.
It's very cool.
I just hope that Mark's okay. That's all. I just
Maybe he's still stuck in that plane.
By the way, it is true that our tape machine on the website does have a 2-minute limit, but that's where we can fit more in. But we always make room for Mark. And I love how you said, thank you for having me on the podcast. Like, come on, man.
You're the fourth host. You're the fourth Beatle here.
Come on.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you want to get to the next one?
Yeah, sure. You have to pretend that I was ready for it here. Let's see. Our next one from Tango Hotel. Here we go.
First off, I love the podcast. I came to y'all's non-event in Nashville this past year. In fact, I was the only guy that stayed at Sugar Creek, glorious solitude. It was amazing. I came over for the breakfast and the podcast the next day and met some guys, and we bagged a bunch of grass strips in Arkansas and Missouri. We even got the police called on us at Trigger Gap. I'm a midlife pilot of a slightly different sort. At 44, I've been flying since I was 22. I've been flying half my life and have accrued about 3,400 hours, all of it pleasure and business, and most of it in piston aircraft. I recently had a milestone of sorts, not a new rating or a state flown to, but I finally landed on a sandbar in the middle of the Mississippi River in my experimental glass star taildragger. This is relevant because for the last 44 years, I've lived on the banks of the Mississippi River, watching the same 3 miles of massive river roll south to the Gulf. My midlife journey has become flying new airplanes, bagging new ratings, and coming up with new adventures to aviate to or through or around. Soon, I plan on flying to the headwaters of the Mississippi River, Lake Itasca in Minnesota, and start a 2,340-mile-long journey down the river to see every mile of it. As best I can, I want to fly every turn and twist and land on every ag strip and sandbar and find cool river towns to drink beer in. I feel certain I will meet a ton of interesting characters. Finally, I'll fly past my hometown of Natchez and end in Venice, Louisiana. Y'all's podcast has been an inspiration to many that halfway through the journey of life, new adventures can still begin. Keep it up. Thank you. Tango Hotel.
Oh, man.
I am super jealous of that. I want to steal that and go do that with them. That sounds freaking awesome.
I was thinking of you because that's kind of up your alley of sticking your nose up against the window and looking outside the whole time and just enjoying that trip.
That's awesome.
Do you remember him at Bentonville?
I do.
Okay.
He was flying around with the Clowers.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And Brian, when I heard that, I feel like what I'm going to do is when we in our copious amounts of spare time, you and I are going to hop in the plane. I don't care which one it is. And we're going to fly the Mississippi and you're going to film it and stop in these towns. And I mean, that's why I got into flying, is to see this country.
Man, that'll be the trip of a lifetime. I love it. This poor guy, he's thanking us for the podcast and coming to the events and all the stuff. And then he gives us the bright idea of this very unique trip that he wants to take. And then we're going to just be like gnats following him around.
And I'm perfectly fine with that. But no,
That's
Tango
awesome.
Hotel, thanks for sending that in, man. That's just, that to me is the chef kiss of it. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what it's about. So
Yeah.
very cool. What about number 3?
Yeah. Well, what that made me think of is there's this
Yeah.
place called the Center for Land Use Interpretation. It's technically a museum. It's also just down the street from the Museum of Jurassic Technology, which is a very strange museum in LA.
Okay.
But this whole idea of stepping back and looking at the landscape and kind of understanding it, and that's one of the things we get to do in our little airplanes that you can't do. It's like drones and airplanes are the things that can start to understand the terrain around us. And I've really enjoyed that, just kind of understanding geography and land use and
geology
exist. Yeah. So yeah, I just think that's really cool.
I do too.
Yeah. And again, so much fun just to look outside of that stuff.
For sure.
Okay. Let's see. Listener A. These videos are not easy to find. This will take a minute here. All right, here we go.
G'day, guys. It's Ray from down Australia here. Just a topic for discussion: how to survive dropping out the bottom of the flight school sausage machine and then surviving in the wild outside aviation world. Look forward to hearing more of your podcasts. Cheers.
Oh, man.
Okay. Anytime you get a voicemail from somebody from Australia, you know it's going to be good.
Yeah.
First thing I would say, Ray, is you should check out our friend Brian Siskin's course, The Long Way. Did I say that right, Brian? Or is Brian frozen?
He may be frozen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's built this program, this course that you can sign up for, in which he will tell you how to make that longer trip using, we got Brian back, maybe. There he is. Or maybe not.
Hopefully I didn't remove the wrong one.
I think he did, but that's okay. Anyway, it's a great question, and we could probably bring this back up into another episode. But I've got this ticket now. What do I do with it?
Yeah,
and life after it is what we're all living. So I do feel like it's a really good question. And Brian, are you with us now?
Oh, yeah.
So I had made the comment that Ray's question kind of folds right into the course that you're providing right now.
Yeah, well, I've had to postpone that course, so
Right, but still.
due to life circumstances. But yes, and we've all got to figure out ways to get out there and take the trips that you work this hard to get a certificate so you can use it. So get out there and use it.
And I would say, I've never been to Australia, but if there's maybe a passport program, or maybe just try to set a goal to land at every airport in Australia, or public benefit flying. There's ways to get yourself into the system that will create new adventures, like our friend Tango Hotel's doing, flying the Mississippi River. So,
yeah, I liked that he said the flight school sausage machine, and that is kind of the reason we're all here.
That's right.
How do we get outside of the 20-year-old headed directly to the airlines who doesn't really enjoy piston flying,
right?
And they're just trying to get through it. And it's like, no, this is what we're here for, and this is a lot of fun, and there's all these things we can do. So, yeah, it was good hearing that. I don't know, I just love phrases like that. You just kind of key on.
Yep. All right, Brian. Anything else for you? You want ready to move on to the next one?
Let's go.
Let's go.
All right, here we go.
Hi, Ben, Brian, and Ted. This is Dan. I did a letter to you guys that you read, episode 189, I believe. I'm the guy, I'm almost 60 and working on my CFI. And I said it didn't go well on the accelerated course, and you guys had wondered why. So I thought I'd just take a minute and send you this recording with my opinion. I'm 59. I'll be 60 here in about a month. And switching from left seat to right seat it just made it very, the sight picture's different. And maybe it's, being a mid-lifer, the whole trying to change hands. I wasn't getting the sight picture down, and I was struggling with some of my maneuvers, things like that. And my instructor was a nice guy, but I think it was more of a personality mismatch. Would get so frustrated with me when I would do something stupid. And then, I was struggling with steep turns at one point. And he looks the other way and goes, which just infuriated me and didn't do anything to help my situation. And then one day he tells me 4 times, if you never become a CFI, just decide to fly for fun the rest of your life. There's nothing wrong with that. So I'm still moving ahead with a different instructor at a slower pace, but I just figured I'd give you guys the story as to what happened. Okay. Thank you. You guys have a fantastic podcast. You are my favorite. Alrighty. Talk to you later.
Boy, oh boy. Listen, spite is very motivating. And so if anything, you should shake this person's hand, this terrible instructor's hand, and say, thank you, because I've never been more determined to accomplish what I want to accomplish than I am now. That is not acceptable.
I agree. And I'll say this. I've taken 2 flights in my plane from the right seat with Stuart in the left seat. And I agree with him that the sight picture is different. We have a throttle that's the veneer throttle, which means you could twist it to make fine adjustments. And when I'm doing that with my left hand as opposed to my right hand, it's confusing for me to which way to know to add power or to take out power just by switching hands. So I get it. It's something that I'm 58, that's like having to rewire my brain, and it's not an easy thing to do. So I feel you. The slower pace is probably going to be a better fit for that. But man, sorry that you had to go through that.
It's also, I don't know, that's kind of the argument about why you should be a CFI is there are so many non-traditional people, and there are so many people that don't fit that mold who get spun out of it. That what was the flight school sausage machine, right? Like not everyone fits that, and
Right.
and so I think that you'd be a real benefit with that.
Keep us posted. Hopefully, like Brian said, you continue out of spite and show that instructor what a good instructor actually looks like. So,
Yeah.
Well, I think we have one more, Ted.
We do. Sierra, yeah, right here. All right, here we go.
Hey, this is Sierra Mike underneath the Duke Charlie. First, I should probably admit that I'm 59 years old, so calling myself a midlife pilot may involve a fairly optimistic actuarial assumption. Apparently, I'm planning to live and plan to keep on flying until I'm 118. In fact, submitting this story makes me realize Joe might kick me out of the midlife pilot wing and reassign me to the late life pilot auxiliary. I've been working toward my instrument rating, and I have every intention of studying consistently, passing the retina, and moving steadily through my chaining. But I had the pleasure of owning a restaurant and brewery in a college town when young people have literally stopped going out in favor of online dating, online gambling, and weed. In addition, over the past year, my mother's health declined to the point that we had to put her in hospice. And at the same time, I've been preparing for a total knee replacement, which is actually occurring within 18 hours of recording this. So my instrument studying has repeatedly been pushed aside over the past year. I even got a brasher warning from the woman at Shepherd Air who told me I was taking an unusually long time to take the written when I asked to have my account renewed. I promised her I hadn't abandoned the program. It was just that life had given me an extended hold, and apparently there's no published hold entry or expected further clearance time. But that may be the real challenge and also the real privilege of being a midlife pilot. We may have more patience and judgment and life experience than we did when we were younger, but we also have careers, aging parents, children, medical issues, and people who depend on us. So my instrument rating is taking longer than I planned. No big deal. But I haven't given up on it either. I'm temporarily delayed, not canceled. But the one thing I can count on is that the midlife pilot community will keep me engaged and motivated. And soon I will get that instrument rating because, after all, Brian can do it. It can't be that hard.
There's so much to unpack in that. I freaking love that feedback.
Yeah.
I mean, he hit it on. We are all, Brian, you're in the midst of it right now, aging parents. It's all just well done. Scott, hang in there. It's going to come together and you're going to get it done. I have no doubt. Just by the tone of your voice and your overall attitude about how you're approaching this is super healthy. So it's not a matter of if, but when, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, come on. Obviously, the instrument rating is not that difficult. I mean, I don't even remember how I did it. No, it's an incredible challenge and focus. I do, in a way, feel like if I did it, anybody could do it. So if I'm hearing that even sort of in a joking way, listen, that it's achievable for anyone. But all that to be said, when you have people depending on you, when you have life happening, I fully relate to. I had 800 hours of VFR flying before I was able to finally get my instrument rating done. And it was always, next year, next year, next year. So anybody can stick it out. And I think that we get more messages of just incredible persistence all the time. You guys hear this on the podcast all the time. People with just incredible check ride stories, much less, flying stories or anything else. Just all the cancellations and all the ups and the downs and the waiting and the medicals and just all this. We're doing it to ourselves, everyone. We're doing this to ourselves. But
I also kind of like
but
it's
the reward.
maybe
The reward
I'm
is great. I was just gonna say the reward is great.
the reward is amazing. I feel like it may be kind of the universe's way of telling him once you get the Brian, you know this. Once you get your instrument ticket, you've got to stay proficient.
Mhm.
And you need to have that time to be able to stay proficient. So maybe these delays is the universe's way of saying, okay, let's wait and you'll get this done. And when you do get it done, you're going to have a lot more time on your hands to maintain that proficiency.
Mhm.
So just good on you, man. Hang in there. Good luck with the knee replacements or knee replacement one. I can't remember what it was, but man, we're definitely thinking about you and you'll get it done.
It's a great message.
I'm definitely in midlife because this is the second knee replacement conversation I've had in the last 24 hours.
That's yeah. And so yeah, we're all midlife. So yeah, I've got to fly until I'm 116. So
Yeah, that was the other thing I wrote down because that there's a T-shirt in there. The wording isn't quite there, but it's I'm midlife as an optimistic actuarial assumption, and we need some tuning on that. But I really like that. Like
It's a good bit. Yeah.
we're all midlife depending on your actuary tables. Yeah, Sarah Mike, that was really funny, and yeah, life gets in the way. And
Yeah. And by the way, just having a mother in hospice care and all that can relate. And just lost my mother-in-law, and it's a strange thing to go through because we as midlifers, when those elders pass, you look around and you go, oh, all right, we're next. So I understand how hard that is. Can't replace family like that. So, and to watch people be sick or suffer is the worst. So I hope that works out as well as it can possibly work.
Very cool. Brian, we'll go ahead and hit the belly scrub, and then we'll get
Yep.
into some Patreon.
Yeah, so you can join our Patreon community and help us keep the Midlife Pilot podcast ad-free. Your support makes this show possible, and every membership level gets you into our incredibly active Discord community. For everything Midlife Pilot podcast, to support us on Patreon, send feedback. To send feedback, grab merch, check out event info, etc., all the things. PayPal drops, whatever. You can do all that at midlifepilotpodcast.com. Don't forget, we also have our ultimate guide to becoming a midlife pilot podcast, or ultimate guide to becoming a midlife pilot PDF. It really is like when you're a midlife pilot and you've got other people that are our age that are saying, God, well, how did you do it? Well, this is all of our collected feedback from you guys and everything else to be the perfect guide to get somebody started. So check that PDF out. It is free. You don't need to give an email, anything like that. And we're real proud of it. So go take it. If you're enjoying the show, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and we'll read it on the air. Then hit subscribe or follow on your podcast app so you never miss an episode. It really helps other midlifers find us. And that is all.
And Ben likes it when you send feedback. Ben is begging for feedback.
Whining.
There you go.
There's a T-shirt in there somewhere. Something about whining.
Yeah, I was also thinking he was talking about doing a California fly-in, and it's the Ben Stop Whining in Northern California. And
oh yeah,
so, I don't know. There's
yeah. There's something to this.
This has got legs. It's got legs.
There's something about aviation shirts that are drinking themed that like. If you get ramp checked, it's just not a good look.
It's not a good look. Yeah.
Well, I held on to our new Patreon people from last week's episode, and so I want to make sure we thank those people. You weren't delayed because you're less important. It's because we want to have time to get to this stuff. So at the Landomatic level, we have Nick C. At the Hershey Bar level, we have Jeff G, Joe F, Paul B, Isaac B, and Ken G. The Beast Stall Kit level, we have an upgrade, and that's John M, who upgraded to Beast. That's it. That's awesome. And then, as we talked about earlier, Delta Foxtrot gave us a PayPal drop. That's in addition to buying burgers last year. So it's lots of bonuses there.
Thank you to that. And it's also good to see Isaac B in the chat tonight. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, yeah. You're right. We saw him.
Yeah.
Over in Discord, hit some things we saw in achievements in the last little while. Captain Todd hit an hour milestone, and he was on a Pilots and Pause flight, shared pictures in achievements of not only himself, but also the dogs. And I loved what he wrote. He said, I attempted multiple times to cause a Cessna 150 to climb in 100-degree heat, which is crazy, I know.
I saw that.
As they say, Cessna 150s don't climb, the earth curves away from them. 5 to 9 Aviator shared a picture of his son doing his discovery flight. I think he was home from college, and that was awesome to see. Midlife Aviator shared their first Pilots and Pause flight and shared pictures of that as well. So that was one of his motivations to do flight training. So it was a great kind of full circle, was doing his first flight of that.
Definitely.
Our friend Chuck in Atlanta, flying a Rotax, Remos actually, he hit an hour milestone. He also talked about some quirks or some issues he was having with his Rotax Magneto. It's always good. Just like Ben, you were sharing your issues with, electronics, whatever, avionics. It's always good to see, we kind of get these little bits of real world experience. And none of it is like, oh, well, Cessna 182s are terrible, Rotax is terrible, whatever. It's getting those things into our brain and knowing like, oh, this actually happens. These are things that people have experienced, and here's what it was like. And I love that. Don't love when you have those experiences, but I love learning from them.
Right.
Richard Yankee 88 shared an hour milestone, and he was in his plane that I love, shared a picture of that. John M. filled his first logbook, so it took him just under 3 years. So congrats. I'm still working on filling my first one. It's electronic though, so I don't think it qualifies.
Be doing that
Also,
for a while.
A pointer over to the plane building channel in Discord. Zach M shared pictures. He shares pictures in there occasionally about his RV build and how it's going. But he was sharing pictures that his daughter was helping him before she went back to college. And he was putting through the carry-through spar in his RV. And so it was really a two-person job. And I'm sure that was a very proud dad moment to have her help.
Definitely.
And so I want to point that out because, achievements are all sorts, all flavors, and that counts as well. I want to include that.
Very nice. All right, fellas, we got through a lot tonight.
Yeah.
Want to remind everybody, 5-star reviews, might get a sticker. Don't forget to hit follow on whatever you're listening to us on. Brian, Ted, anything else for the good of the order?
Yeah, good show. Thanks you guys for making the last 2 episodes happen.
Yeah. Tonight's wisdom: learn from the mistakes of others. You won't live long enough to make them all yourself. Signing off. Episode 195 of the Midlife Pilot Podcast. Goodbye, everybody.